37 years old, surrounded by soldiers, refused to become a hostage and refused to let anyone else die in her place. Her name, Hosokawa Gracia. The daughter of Japan's most famous traitor, and the woman whose death changed the outcome of the battle that decided who would rule Japan. I am a descendant of a samurai family, and after going back to the original Japanese sources, I found something. Today, I reveal the truth about Hosokawa Gracia. There is a version of this story you have probably heard. Hosokawa Gracia, the Christian martyr, the tragic wife, the woman whose faith made her die beautifully. That version is incomplete. The Japanese primary sources and the Jesuit records written at the time, not reconstructed later, tell a far more complicated story. They tell the story of a woman who was handed an impossible life, rebuilt herself 3 times over, and made a final choice that no one around her fully understood. That is the story we are going to tell today.
July 17th, 1600. The city of Osaka, Japan. Inside the Hosokawa residence in the Tamatsukuri district, a woman sends her servants away. One by one, she dismisses them, the maids, the kitchen staff, the attendants who have served her for years. Get out. Go. All of you. The city is already in motion around her. Soldiers are in the streets. Ishida Mitsunari, one of the most powerful officials in Japan, has surrounded the building with armed men. His demand is simple. Come with us, or we will take you by force. The woman inside has already decided what she will do. She has no intention of becoming a hostage. She has no intention of letting her servants die defending a building that is already lost. She has been preparing for this moment in the only way available to her for years. Her name is Tama. That is what her family called her. In the Jesuit records that would preserve her story across Europe, she is known as Gracia, the Latin word for grace. She is the daughter of Akechi Mitsuhide, the man who assassinated the most powerful warlord in Japan, held power for 13 days, and died in the aftermath before anyone had decided what to do about him. She was 19 years old when her father did that. She was 20 years old when the consequences arrived at her door. By the morning of July 17th, 1600, she is 37. What happens in the next few hours will be recorded by the Jesuit missionaries who knew her. It will be reported to Rome. It will be discussed in courts across Europe. And 98 years after her death, according to records that survive to this day, it will be performed as an opera in Vienna before an audience that includes the Habsburg imperial family. That opera still exists. The score survives. The libretto survives. The program from the premiere performance survives. We know exactly what the Habsburg court was told about this woman and what they believed about her choice. That is something we will return to before this episode ends.
If you want to understand what actually happened that morning and why it mattered to people who had never heard of Japan, stay with me. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.
Hosokawa Tama was born in 1563, the same year that Oda Nobunaga was still a minor regional lord, years before anyone had reason to think he might unify Japan. Her father, Akechi Mitsuhide, rose alongside Nobunaga, first as a trusted general, then as one of the most capable administrators in the emerging new order. In 1578, when Tama was 15 years old, Nobunaga arranged her marriage himself. The man she was given to was Hosokawa Tadaoki, the son of Hosokawa Fujitaka, one of the warlord's most reliable allies. It was not a love match. It was a political seal between two powerful families, administered by the most powerful man in Japan. Tama had no say in it. For 4 years, she lived at the Hosokawa stronghold in Tango province. She had children. By all accounts, and the Jesuit records are detailed here, She was intellectually exceptional, curious, precise in argument, interested in ideas that most women of her class were never invited to engage with. That part of the story is documented. Then, in 1582, on the second day of the 6th month, her father moved 13,000 soldiers against Oda Nobunaga's residence at Hanaji Temple. Nobunaga died inside. Akechi Mitsuhide held Japan's capital for 13 days. Then he was dead too, and everything that had made Tama's life stable collapsed in the same week. Under the customs of the time, a woman whose father had committed high treason against his lord was expected to be divorced, cut loose, returned to a family that no longer existed. Hosokawa Tadaoki did not divorce her. The reasons for this are not clear in the records, whether it was genuine attachment, political calculation, or some combination, but he kept her. What he did instead was send her away. Midono, a mountain village in Tango Province, deep enough into the hills that the politics of Osaka and Kyoto felt like something happening in another country. This is where Hosokawa Tadaoki sent Tama after the Hanoji incident. Not divorced, not publicly disowned, simply removed from view. She was 20 years old. She had small children who were not brought with her. She stayed for approximately 1 year and 8 months, the duration established by local records and later scholarly research. The records on what she did during that time are sparse. The mountain itself is not sparse. It is cold in winter. It is isolated in every season. There was nothing to do but think. What we know from the documents that survive is that she came out of Midono different, not broken. The Jesuit sources, which pay close attention to her intellectual state throughout her adult life, describes someone with an unusual capacity for sitting inside difficult questions and not flinching. Whether Midono made her that way, or whether it revealed something that was already there, is something the records cannot tell us. In 1584, through the intervention of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who had defeated her father's forces and taken power, she was permitted to return. Tadaoki brought her back to the Hosokawa residence in Osaka. She had been gone long enough that the world had reorganized itself around her absence. Then, in 1587, 3 years after her return, something happened that none of the people around her could fully explain. She asked to go to church. The Jesuit records are precise about this. In the second month of 1587, while Hosokawa Tadaoki was away on military campaign in Kyushu, serving Toyotomi Hideyoshi in the conquest of the southern island, Tama left the residence. She brought a small number of attendants. She went to a Jesuit church in Osaka. There, she met the Spanish Jesuit Gregorio de Cespedes and a Japanese brother named Cosme. She spent hours asking them questions. The records describe her as methodical, not credulous, not emotionally overwhelmed. She was testing the ideas she had been turning over, probably for years, against people who had answers. She could not receive baptism that day. Going to the church at all was already an act of significant risk, and a formal conversion required preparation and authorization that took months to arrange. Instead, she sent one of her attendants, a woman named Kiyohara Maria, to study Christian doctrine on her behalf. Maria was baptized first. Then, through Maria, Tama received her own baptism at home, in private, in the 8th month of that same year. Her baptismal name was Gracia. In Latin, it means grace. The Jesuit who recorded this called her in the annual report sent to Rome a woman of, quote, superhuman knowledge derived from delicate talent and natural gifts. That phrase appears in the official institutional record of the Society of Jesus. The same month she was baptized, Toyotomi Hideyoshi issued the Bateran Expulsion Order, a decree limiting Christian missionary activity in Japan. It did not immediately end all Christian practice, but it made Tama's faith something that had to be practiced carefully, in private, under conditions that could turn dangerous at any time. She practiced it anyway, for 13 more years.
There is something I keep returning to when I read about her. My ancestors who served the Uesugi, who were on the opposite side of the wars she lived through, would have known her world perfectly. The impossible choices. The question of what you hold onto when everything that defined you has been taken away. She found an answer. I am not sure it is an answer I would have found.
The marriage between Tama and Hosokawa Tadaoki had been difficult long before Christianity became part of the picture. The later chronicles written after her death, so these are accounts we hold more carefully, describe a husband who was, by any standard, extreme in his jealousy. Servants dismissed or punished for insignificant contact, a household structured around the principle that his wife should not be seen. The details of the most dramatic stories are found in sources compiled well after the events, so we note them as tradition rather than documented fact. What is documented in the Jesuit records, which were written contemporaneously, is that she was effectively confined. She could not attend church after her baptism. She had to practice her faith through intermediaries, letters to priests, theological manuscripts she translated herself into Japanese for her attendants, a wooden cross she is recorded as keeping. The Jesuits wrote about her consistently as someone practicing faith under significant constraint. What is also documented is that Tadaoki knew. He did not convert, he did not approve, but he did not stop her. The Jesuit records note that at certain points he grew openly hostile, particularly after Hideyoshi's expulsion order, confiscating her books, punishing servants who had converted. At other points he sent her letters from military campaigns, the tone of which the Jesuits found difficult to classify. A man simultaneously trying to control everything about his wife and apparently unable to be indifferent to her. Their marriage produced 5 children. Neither of them left any direct record of how they understood what they had built together. By 1597, when Toyotomi Hideyoshi had 26 Christians crucified in Nagasaki, a public execution that the Jesuits and the Japanese Christian community both understood as a warning, Tama is recorded as having resolved, in the event that her own arrest came, to seek martyrdom rather than recant. That moment did not come, but she had made the decision.
There is a question that runs through Gracia's story that has no clean answer. She was confined by her husband, by her social position, by a political situation she had not chosen. And within that confinement, she built something, a private theology, a community of servants she guided through texts she translated herself, a correspondence with missionaries she could never meet face to face. Was that freedom? Was that survival? Was it something else entirely, a woman finding the only form of agency available to her and using it completely? The historical sources don't resolve this. What they do show is that the confinement didn't stop the building. Whatever she was making, she kept making it. That is perhaps the only thing we can say with certainty.
July 16th, 1600. A messenger arrives at the Hosokawa Osaka residence with a formal request from Ishida Mitsunari. The household should comply with the transfer to another residence, technically a guest arrangement, but understood by everyone involved as a hostage placement. Hosokawa Tadaoki had already left Japan's capital region with Tokugawa Ieyasu's Eastern Coalition. He had left instructions. In no circumstances was his wife to be taken. The household refused the request. The next day, Mitsunari sent soldiers. The building was surrounded. What happened inside the building over the next hours is recorded in multiple sources that largely agree. A Japanese chronicle called the Kitano Shrine Diary, written the same day, records that the request was refused and that a retainer named Ogasawara Shosai performed the final act. The Watako Shiroku, a detailed Hosokawa clan record, compiled later records Tama's last poem. The Jesuit missionary accounts, sent to Rome, record that she prayed, that she sent her attendants out of the building so they would not die with her, and that she knelt and called the names of Jesus and Mary. The Japanese clan record and the European missionary record describe the same room, the same choice, the same sequence. They were written by people with very different purposes. They agree. Her last poem, preserved in the Watako Shiroku, reads, "The flower that falls knows when to fall. That is why it is beautiful. So too with a person." She was 37 years old. After her death, the retainer, Ogasawara, set fire to the building. He and the other remaining household members took their own lives. The fire was visible from the surrounding streets. Ishida Mitsunari, who had organized the hostage operation with military precision, called it off entirely. Gracia's death had made taking the others too costly. The women of the other allied families were allowed to leave Osaka. Now, the echo I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, 98 years after Gracia's death, in 1698, the Society of Jesus performed an opera at an educational institution in Vienna. The composer was Johann Bernhard Stout. The librettist was Johann Baptist Adolph, who stated explicitly that his source was a published account of Gracia's conversion and death. The program described her as, in translation, a strong woman who endured countless difficulties for her Christian faith. The premiere audience included members of the Habsburg imperial court. Later, according to tradition, the story reached Maria Theresa. In this version, the Habsburg version, Gracia was a martyr. The Catholic Church, however, did not ultimately classify her as one. The formal determination was that she died for her husband's orders and for her family's honor, not for her faith. That distinction mattered to the institution. Whether it would have mattered to Gracia, no source can tell us.
What stays with me is the poem, not the theology, not the politics, the poem. She wrote it in the last hour of her life, and it is about timing, about knowing when the moment is yours. My ancestors fought for Uesugi Kenshin on battlefields she would have known by name. They understood that kind of choice, the choice to act exactly when you have decided to act, and not before and not after. She made that choice under conditions I cannot fully imagine. The next person in this story made a different kind of choice, one that would define loyalty in Japan for the next 3 centuries, and that is still argued about today. His name was Oishi Kuranosuke. That story is next.